Welcome, Simba, to the Walk with Founders podcast. I am super excited to have you here with me today to talk about your founder journey and see what we can discover to help early stage founders make life a little bit easier for them.
I am super excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So, I thought we'd start with, when did your founder journey begin?
So my journey began when I was still in university. I attended an event where there were different startup companies that were pitching, and it was just I was bored. I heard about this event, and I thought I'd go and check it out. During that one of the pitches, there was three founders that were starting a company that did cognitive training. And since my background was in neuroscience and I was studying neuroscience, I was like, I need to join this. This is going to be super awesome. So I spoke with the founders, let them know what I was studying, said I think I would be a good addition because I can bring that perspective. And then they brought me on board as one of the co-founders of that company. And so for the next 4 years, we tried to, and I use the word tried, to develop a software program. We learned a lot of things because, again, we developed it, but we're not necessarily talking to our ideal customer at that time. But it was a very meaningful experience to really get a taste of what is important when building a company. But that's how I started.
And so I love that you brought up the thing about actually talking to your ideal customer. How important do you think that is in actually building a business that gets traction?
I'll put it this way. I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money building something that I thought was going to be what the customer needed. Now, maybe the problem you're trying to solve is a problem that the customer has, but again, you want to make sure you're validating it. But how you're going to solve that problem has to fit in within the context of that customer in terms of their operations, their requirements, their budget. So if you're not talking to them, you might build something that might solve their problem, but the issue is that it might not fit in their specific context. So with our first company, it was a virtual reality based cognitive training program. So at that time, VR it was a hot topic, but you needed to have like at least $1,000 computer to be able to run the program. So we built it. We went and we found a psychologist and a sports training center. We presented it to them. They were excited. They could see the use case with the athletes because they wanted to make them elite athletes. But the second we told them the price, so about 700 for the VR headset, 1,000 for the laptop, they were like, "Oh, we can't pay that much for that. Like, we won't be able to recuperate our costs." And so they basically said, if you can reduce the cost down to this amount, then we can get it. But because the technology wasn't there, we just built this software program without taking that into account. So that is like an example of it is so important to be asking the right questions, talking to them, really understanding what they need as well as their business, so that when you bring in that solution, it's actually going to not only meet their needs, but also match their requirements and the constraints that they might also be facing.
And a lot of, I think, especially new people in business, new founders, they get so excited about their idea and then they want to build a product, because going to talk to people that might actually buy it is scary, right? It feels like it's way easier and it's a lot more fun to just sort of work on the project. So how do you get past that fear?
I still hesitate a lot. I just know that if I don't talk to them, the cost to what I'm doing is going to be high. So if I avoid it right now and I just build, eventually I need to talk to a customer because I'm not building it for myself. So I know that the pain of talking to them right now is much less than the pain of like putting that off, building something and then realizing that, well, I thought this is what they needed, but now I have to go back and redo all the different things that we'd already developed. The analogy I like to use is if your product or if your solution is a car, what you think is going to be the engine of the car might be the windows for your customer. They might be like, oh, this is a nice to have. Like, what I really need is this. So talk to them so you can figure out that what the priorities, that the priorities you think they are actually the right priorities for them. The process is going to be uncomfortable. It's just you have to make sure that you are being proactive in terms of where you're finding that discomfort so that you're better prepared for when you go and actually have that product. The other thing is a lot of customers would love to be involved in the early stages and to give you that feedback. And so when you start talking to them, you don't necessarily need them to buy right away. Right? See if they'll actually test the product. And then they will actually give you even more feedback on certain things that you might not have thought of. So one of the products that we created, and was for the second company, our Lenica Research Group, we partnered up with the AHS, which is Alberta Health Services, for this specific project. And so we built a stroke rehabilitation program that we thought this is going to be perfect. Right? It's a VR-based program. We had done the blue light. We have reduced them significantly. We had used some of the research from what they were already doing to develop this program. And we talked to the customers. We knew that it was going to work perfect. When they tested it out, they realized that individuals that did have a stroke really struggled with looking at screens, no matter how comfortable that screen was. And the tasks that were super easy for a person who had not suffered a stroke tended to be still very difficult for a patient who has suffered from a stroke. And so that testing with that cohort of patients gave not only the staff information, but gave us information in terms of determining that this system needed to be simplified a lot more. And maybe we actually needed to have a two-dimensional version of it before a patient could actually use the 3D or the virtual reality version of it.
And how did you reach out to, like, how did you find that partner? Because I'm a big fan of partnerships too. I think partnerships or being able to like use leverage, like if you find someone who's already serving your ideal audience for your product or service, it saves time and it's usually a win-win for both people. So how do you find, like, say, let's use that partner for example?
Um, so there have been different ways in which I've found partners for this specific partner in that rehabilitation project. It was literally me talking about how excited I was with what we were doing to different people. And so I was working with a clinical director when I was a behavior therapist. And she was like, well, I know the people at this hospital that do rehabilitation and they're looking for innovative solutions. I can put you in contact with them. And I was like, sure. And then we met. We showed them what we had created for the sports industry. They did not like it. They're like, that's okay. But it's not something that I think we can use. And then we said, when we can build something for you. So what is it that you're looking for? What is the gap that you're actually seeing? And then they told us that this is what we're looking at. This is what we do not have in terms of, again, that cognitive rehabilitation, especially after a stroke. There isn't a lot of tools for that. So that was the key area that they needed. And so once we figured out their needs, we're like, okay, will you pay for it? They're like, we do not pay for anything that is not validated. I'm like, fair enough. So we had to go out and find the funds to be able to create the first iteration of this project. And so with this partner, it was again just talking to people about it, being excited about it, and then finding someone who was able to give us that introduction. Some of my other partners have been through networking events. Some of it has been through cold outreach, just literally seeing like either sports training center or rehabilitation center that we're like, this is important, like would love to work with them, reaching out to them. Sometimes you're getting a yes, sometimes you don't get a yes. So that has been specifically in the technology space. With the educational partners, which is for the Body Language Training Institute, that one has been more along the lines of providing relevant, meaningful content that people can attend, can kind of experience through like some of the complimentary workshops. And then from there, then they'll either request a workshop or sign up for something that they'll need to pay for.
Very smart. Yeah, because the Body Language Institute that you're doing now, that's your main company along with the podcast, which I want to talk about as well. Um, and so are you getting, like, I know with the, or maybe just explain a little bit about with the Body Language Institute, is that's more a sort of consumer facing, like it's not for organizations necessarily, it's more just for the everyday consumer, correct?
Yes, so with the Body Language Training Institute, the intention when I actually started it was to literally teach people confidence, body language. The skills that took me like 10 to 15 years to learn, I was like, it should not take a person that long to figure this out. So when I started it, it was to provide workshops and events for consumers. So anyone who wanted to improve those skills. And so a lot of those skills, a lot of those events were reasonably priced, like $5. And this is like in 2017. And I was like, this is super amazing. People are paying me for something. And then some of them were complimentary. And so most of the workshops that we have, those tend to be more public facing. However, the website was changed about 2.5 years ago to be more corporate facing. So for individuals that are looking for those services in a professional capacity. So some of the public facing individuals that come to those courses, they also work for companies. And so they'll learn about it and then they'll go back to their companies, let them know that I took this session. I think it'll be good for our leadership team or our clinical team to go through this training, and then they reach out. But the website itself has been optimized specifically for those corporations that are looking to improve communication skills, stress management, mindset skills for their specific staff.
I love it because I think mindset, is one of the biggest things that actually stops people from taking action and building their businesses. Like the skill sets of business, they're pretty fundamental principles, and
Mhm.
it's like they're not that hard, but it's usually that internal stuff that's so challenging to get over, like the outreach to invite people to test your product, or the outreach to see if you can find a collaborator or a partner, or looking for funding, even going into a networking event feeling confident when it's like you feel like a complete imposter. And so
Yeah.
what are some of the tips that you share maybe in like one of your confidence courses that could help people to do those things? Because realistically, you have to do those things if you're going to build a business. Like you can't avoid them if you're serious about building something that's going to support you and last for an amount of time.
Absolutely. And like just building off what you said, and then I'll answer your question.
Yeah.
When you're starting a company, you're going to be faced with your strengths as well as with your weaknesses. So if you don't start a company, if you've got a career, if you got a job, you can kind of hide those. Because in a social situation, if you're afraid of approaching people, is it really going to impact your life? Maybe, but you can kind of continue hiding from it. In business, especially if you're like passionate about something, your strengths are going to be very apparent. Your weaknesses are going to be very apparent. And so how you manage those is going to be key to your success, because you're right. Starting a business, the fundamentals are pretty straightforward, but being able to execute them requires you to be self-aware, to reflect, to be honest with yourself, so that you are able to actually do the things that are necessary to address that. So there are two ways that those can be addressed. So one, right, especially if you're starting out, maybe you do not have a team, maybe it's just you. You educate yourself. You figure out, what am I having difficulties with? Get more information about it, and then do the thing knowing that you're going to be scared. So the idea is that you're not going to get rid of the fear. The idea is that the fear is going to be there, but you're going to do it anyway. One of the books that I love is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Do it scared. So some of the first times again that I started public speaking, I recorded myself and I was shaking. My voice was very unsure. And I kid you not, I sweated so bad that on camera, like it looked like I just taken a cold plunge. It was disgusting, but it was necessary. And then I did my 2 weeks of recovery and then I did it again. And then I did it again and I did it again. And so the more you do something, the more you overcome your fear of doing it. Reading about something, listening about something, feeling inspired, that's great, but it is never going to overcome that fear. You have to do the thing so that you actually start getting comfortable with it. And so if you're afraid of doing it, some of the things that can help is having a community around you of other founders that are also facing the same thing. And then if you have one person who's like super petrified of like cold calling, and then one of them does it, then you're almost looking like, oh, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. Right. And so I was part of the startup community here in Edmonton, and just, you know, meeting up other founders. We'll sit down and maybe we'll spend an hour about how much startup life was kicking our ass. Hopefully, we're allowed to swear a little bit.
Yep.
And then after that, well, complaining is not going to help. Like, we need to go and do that thing. And so we'll go into our offices, into our shared space, and then we'll make the phone calls. We'll come back and we'll look at each other and we'll be like, whew, okay, now, now we need a break. And then we'll take a break. So in terms of your mindset, right, recognize that the fear is going to be there. Accept it. There's no need to fight against the fear. Realize it's your body's way of trying to protect you. Right? Realize that again, if you're feeling the fear, this is an opportunity for growth. One of the things that I read a while ago is that if it makes you nervous, that means you're on the right path. Right? Context matters for this. So if you're doing something stupid and it makes you nervous, don't do that. But in the context of a company, if it makes you a little bit nervous, like you're on the right path. If talking to that CEO, calling that company that you're like, I don't know if they'll talk to me, right? That means that's the thing that you need to do. Because we overestimate other people's importance and we underestimate our own. Any person who's ever been an entrepreneur and is successful and sees another entrepreneur trying to start their company and being genuine about it, right? So if you learn sales tactics and you try to do anything that is a little bit like people feel like is manipulative, that might not work. But if you're genuinely honest, like I'm building this product, I'm excited about this product, this is what I'm doing, most people will listen. Okay, tell me more about that. Other people will be supportive. Other people might question, okay, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about it? And if they start questioning your plan or your product, that's not a bad thing. Right? That means they're engaged and they are trying to understand how certain are you about the product that you are building, because they understand that it is a very character building experience. Some people try to use the word difficult, but it's a very character building experience. And so those questions are aimed to make sure that your idea, your strategies, your processes are resilient enough for you to be able to keep moving forward. If you fall apart, you're like, well, I haven't thought about that. I haven't thought about that. I haven't thought about that. That is also great information. Go back to the drawing board. Okay, I need to think about this. I need to think about this. I need to think about this. And so do it scared. Fear is a normal part of it. Being told no is like, it almost becomes your nickname. So you used to that, but realize that every single no is a learning opportunity. Okay, they said no, they won't invest in me. Why was that the case? Right? They said no to the product. Why was that the case? Because every single no is telling you something that allows you to fine tune what it is you're doing. And the more you keep fine tuning, and it might take you years to keep fine tuning it, the more you keep fine tuning, the more you're able to figure out how to create that ideal product and solve that problem in a way that is actually going to be effective.
And how have you learned not to take it personally? Like so many people are like, oh, when they tell me no, or they, you know, give me what they might see as criticism, which really isn't criticism. It's just a question. And like, I often think as, and I can't remember who said it, but it's like, no is just the start of the conversation. It's just a
Hmm.
place to keep going with. But it can often be difficult, especially if you've been really excited about this thing you're launching and it feels really like so personal, and it's something that can change the world or make a big difference. It can be challenging to build that space where you don't take it personal, because if you take it personal, it'll often shut you down, and then you don't have that opportunity to grow or the opportunity to learn from the person that's in front of you. So because you've
Mhm.
built multiple businesses, I'm sure you've been through this many times, because anyone who's kind of the serial entrepreneur has. How have you learned not to take it so personal?
I'll be honest, I still take it personally.
But you keep
My I made like a rule with myself that early on, because I realized after my first no, I almost like stopped. Like a week, like after I got that no, a week I did not work on my on the project, on the company that I was working on. And so I was like, whenever I hear no, I'm going to give myself 3 days to suck up, do what I need to do, whine and mop. After 3 days, we need to go back to work. And so the irony of that is that now I'm at a point that maybe I give myself half a day. Okay, half a day, take a walk, go to the gym, do what you need to do. But after that, we need to continue moving forward. And so I haven't found the secret of necessarily not taking it personal, because I do understand that again, when a person says no, there's a lot of other factors that are in play. Maybe it's not the right timing. Maybe they don't have the budget. Maybe there's uncertainty in the economy. Maybe my product is not right for them. So there's all these other factors that, on a conscious level, I understand. But still, when I hear that no, I'm like, but it's such a good product. Like, what's going on? So the way I've overcome it is that I will not allow myself to mope for over one day. Like, one day is the maximum. If I need my ice cream, my booster juice, my walk, I'll do that. But after that, we will keep moving forward. So if anyone has figured that out in a way that will work, like I do understand again all those things again consciously, but
Yeah.
emotional, I still have response.
Yeah, I think we do feel it. I think it's more about just not letting it paralyze you, like you say, and stop you. And I love that you sort of give yourself a timeline. I was going to actually ask you, like, what's your time frame for starting again, or going, doing the next call, or reach out, which you said you give yourself a day, or even now. And I think even giving yourself half a day, it just means you've been doing it more and more and more. So it
Mhm.
does, like you say, not that it doesn't affect you, but it does. But I think we just bounce back faster
Yeah.
because we understand that it's necessary. It's just
Yeah.
necessary. We if you want the thing that you're building to grow,
Mhm.
you know. And so I'm curious, actually, just it's kind of the same topic, but are you clear about the vision for where you want to go with both the body language education company as well as your podcast? Like, do you have clear, like, I'm like, this is where I'm headed right now? Like, it could change, of course, but
Um, yes, I have a strong, I guess you could still call it a vision. I'm very clear on the impact that I want both of those companies to have. So for body language, I'm like, this is the impact I want it to have on the people that interact with any of our products. The same thing with the podcast. Like, I'm very clear on the impact. Um, and so I think I spend maybe a lot more time like making sure that the things that I'm doing today, this week, are meeting that impact, as opposed to thinking about, okay, how do I want it to look like necessarily a year, 5 years, 10 years from now? Like, I still do that, like maybe 20% of the time, but 80% of the time it's looking at that day-to-day impact. So, for example, the Body Language Training Institute, for a while now, probably like a year, I've been happy with how things are, right? We've got our workshops, people attend, we've got our courses that people can access, and people are enjoying it, right? People are finding it impactful. It's only this year that I'm like, I think it's time to grow. right? And then I was inspired with a new idea that I'm like, oh, this will be so cool to add. So now I'm like, okay, now I know that I want to add this. I want it to look like this. But also that comes into timing. And it's really, I don't know if it's a skill, but I've also learned that sometimes we want things to happen, but the timing is not right.
Yes.
And you work really hard to be like, I want this to happen. I'm working super hard. I'm making the phone calls. This is my product. It's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work. But the timing is not right. And it's almost like you do it enough times. You succeed in some ways. You fail in some ways where you realize now looking back, actually the timing for this was not right. But the timing for this was right. Or if I'd only like maybe started this a few months later, then this would have been more effective. And so sometimes you're like, I want to do this, or I want to start this company or have this new product in terms of expanding it, but you're not feeling fully aligned with it. And so it's almost like in your gut that, okay, it's there, it's not fully formed, but maybe there is additional information that you need. Maybe you need to meet someone. And this is kind of the part that is not really tangible when it comes to entrepreneurship, where now I know that, okay, even though I want to build this, so the example is like a membership site. We've got this new amazing AI coach coming out that I'm like, it's going to change communication training like global. It's amazing. But I've had the tools to do that for like the last year, but the timing wasn't quite right. Like I'm like, I'll do this, but something else will come up. A few events happened like in the past 6 weeks, and then I'm like, boom, now the timing is right. And now that I know that the timing is right, when I'm doing all those things to make sure that this is launched properly, it's easy. And what I mean by that is I'm in flow. When I'm doing certain things, they're just falling into place. Things are not falling apart. Right? There seems like to be a flow to everything. My team is working in flow. The contacts are working. When I connect with people, it's working. But I know that the timing is right. So again, I don't know how more to explain it, but there is a timing to certain things where maybe sometimes you've got an idea, but it's not fully formed. Maybe you need to learn a little bit more. Maybe you need to take a few more courses. Maybe you need to focus on exactly what that vision or that impact that you want to have is because it's not clear yet. And without that clarity, all the stuff that you're going to try to do will not be as effective as you want them to be.
Absolutely. Do you want to share what the impact is that you want to make?
Uh, my impact, my personal impact in 3 words is to empower, to inspire, and to love. And I did
Nice.
that based on my why that I did with you. Uh, and so the first thing in terms of to empower is for people to realize that they have the capacity to accomplish anything and everything that they want to accomplish. They're able to be that confident person. They're able to start that business. They're able to live that lifestyle. That version of them that they want, but are feeling afraid, they have that capacity. And so empowering them is for me giving them the information, the tools, the different in perspective so that they get out of their own way. They see things a little bit different. So the current perspective that is holding them back, they realize that there's another way to look at the same situation. And I think, like, again, I think that's very powerful. To inspire for me means being the example of everything that I'm teaching. When I was reading a lot of books around entrepreneurship, success, happiness, making money, one of the things you start realizing is that there's a lot of people that are teaching this stuff, but I have not actually accomplished those stuff. Or they're teaching about how to, let's say, make money, for example, but they only make their money from selling books about how to make money. So in my head, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Yes.
yes, maybe you might be putting in, stringing things together. Maybe 60 to 70% of it might be like correct because again, they are well-known principles. But have you actually walked the path? And so for me, one of the biggest things is, am I walking my talk? Right? Do I actually have the lifestyle that I want that I like? Right? Am I actually doing the things that I'm teaching? So people living on purpose. Do I have the happiness, the health, the finances to be able to be like almost like evidence that the things that I'm telling you are literally, I know that they work because they work in my own life. And of course, they work for other people as well across their life. And then to love is just as best as I can to do everything in a place, in a state of love, caring, compassion. And with love, of course, that's one of the things that I realize that grows as you learn more about yourself, about your past experiences, how definitions of love can change based on your own experiences as a child and what has happened in your life. So that has also been a learning experience that I've been fortunate to grow from as well.
And so is that the driving thing behind both the education company and the podcast? Or is there a slight
Yes.
variation for each of those?
So that is the driving thing in terms of the impact that I want to make.
Yeah.
But ultimately on a global level, it is to raise global consciousness. And for those of you that are thinking like, okay, that sounds fluffy duffy, I read a book called by Dr. David Hawkins, like different states of consciousness. I cannot remember
Yeah.
the title, but I can see it. But it talks about the different states of consciousness of each of us and of the global population. And for whatever reason, that book really stuck on me, realizing that the majority of people, like our global population, live under the 200. So it's like a logarithmic scale from 0 to 1,000, right? And then at the different levels, there are different emotions, right? So shame, guilt, apathy, anger, pride, courage, and it goes on and on and on. And so basically, a lot of us have a specific state of consciousness that we stay in. And for majority of people, it's shame, it's guilt, it's apathy, it's anger. Right? That's where the majority of the global population is. And so with all my initiatives, the idea is to get people to that 200 level, which is the courage or the confidence part, because that's where things start turning positive. Once you get over that, you can do whatever you want. There's a lot of other content, quantum information in terms of quantum mechanics, spiritual information that'll get you to higher levels of consciousness. But my goal is just to get to people to that initial positive state. Because once you get to there, then again, things become much easier for you, right? Not because your life is easier, but how you're dealing with them becomes significantly easier.
And I think you're one of the most high, I would say high agency or self-responsible people, probably that I know. Because I think you do look at life through that lens as well. Um, and I think if we go back to thinking if that's the impact you want to have, having that, then I think, and you can tell me if it's the same for you or not, but makes it easier than when you're planning, what am I going to do in my business? What am I going to do today? So if you know this is the end goal that I'm going for, and
Mhm.
then it's like, okay, now I'm going to create these programs, I'm, going to do these workshops, everything with, and this is where we're headed, so I can help people do this. It suddenly becomes easier where when you sit down every day to work on your business, you kind of know what to do because you know where you're headed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is so powerful because, again, if you know this is the impact that I want to have, this is what I want people to get out of it, then everything else you make is um is framed around that.
Yes.
And if you don't have that clear vision, then there's, how can I put it? There's going to be lots of doubt, right? And if you see other people doing the same material that is similar to yours, you'll be like, oh, someone's already doing it, right? Or someone's already doing it better. Or you tell someone that you want to do this, you want to start this company or work on this project, and they will tell you something that, oh, that's already been done, or have you seen that? And you're easily discouraged. But if you know your purpose, if you know your vision, if you know your why, then you're like, okay, this is the reason. This is the reason why I want to do this, and you focus on that reason only. Shut out the noise in terms of like what other people are going to say, because the people around you, I'll tell you this, people only give you advice and feedback based on their level of consciousness, based on how far they've accomplished or their own insecurities. So if they've not done the thing that you want to do, I guarantee you 99% of them will tell you what makes you think you can do that. Or they'll find something negative about your idea because they've not done it. But if you talk to a person who has done it, then they're going to be like, oh yeah, so I can see how this will work. And then you might have they might engage with them. But if you don't have those people, a lot of my businesses, I didn't talk to anyone. Like most of the time in terms of what I'm working on, it's very quiet. No one knows about it until I've started having momentum. One of the things I know within like, again, the people around me, they'll be like, why don't you tell us that you had a workshop on um, like mindset and communication? And I'm like, well, if you, I guess I could be telling you, but I don't. And part of the reason is, again, just having that space for me to be able to focus on, knowing that, okay, this is my why, this is my purpose, this is my impact, and I don't need any other noise happening when this takes place, and then hyper focusing on it. The other thing that is also connected to, sometimes when we start something, we want people to support us, right? Friends, family, I'm doing this thing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So long as if you've got a supportive network. If you don't have a supportive network, it's you, podcasts, books, and you just go, go, go. Or you find that supportive network. Because again, clarity is very important. Ensuring that there's not a lot of noise is very important. Sometimes withholding telling someone is also very important, because when we say something to someone, our brain actually, in some sense, acts as if we've already achieved it. That is why sometimes people will say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then they feel good. And people are like, oh, that's amazing, that's amazing. And then they never do anything because they've already gotten that hit, that they've already accomplished it. So being quiet about it also is like, yes, I would love to tell people that I'm going to do that, but I will only tell people once I've accomplished. I love to say, don't tell me, show me. And everything I want to do, like I would love to share a lot of things that I'm doing right now. But again, those I would say to people once I've accomplished them. Oh, by the way, I launched this, or I'm launching this. The momentum is already there. Now they know that it's going to happen.
Yes. And how do you maintain sort of that focus bubble? And I think you're right. I think especially in the beginning, because I often think as like new little baby businesses or baby ideas is they're kind of fragile. So it's like you almost need to build the incubator around it so that because you're fragile too as like the new mom or the new dad of this business. And so it's so important to build like this safety or focus bubble until you have the momentum, until you, which also I think gives you the confidence to keep going so that you don't let someone else crush your dream. So how do you maintain your like focus bubble and not let those distractions in?
When I was writing the MCAT, and this is connected, there's a time when I really wanted to be a doctor. The part that I struggled with was the verbal reasoning. Like, for whatever reason, I could not reason the verbal reasoning. One of my really good friends, like Stefan, I'll drop your name here, he got almost like, he was like really good. Like, I think like he got like 100%. Like, he was really good at like English and at reasoning. So bless his heart, he started helping me with verbal reasoning. Like, we'll spend like hours just going through Simba. Can't you see this? Or saying this. And I'm like, how are you seeing this? Anyways, one of the things that he said is that structure informs intent. And you are saying that the structure of the paragraph tells you the intent or what it's trying to convey. So if you can pick up on that, then you're able to understand a lot of the questions that are being asked. I took that into my own life. Structure informed intent. The way my life is structured informs the things that I'm trying to accomplish. So what am I doing on a daily basis? What am I doing on a weekly basis? How can I structure it in a way that is going to foster those ideas, foster those thought patterns? And so part of it, like everyone, like my family laughs at me around this, is that the place I stay is literally designed to work and think. There's no TV, right? There's lots of books, right? It's like you come in here, you look, you're like, okay, what can I do? Right? Because it's having the books around, not having a TV. My desk is like in my living room, which again, some people will be like separate work, but that's another story. But everything around me is like, okay, think of ideas, visualize, be in an environment that inspires you. So I've got lots of plans that are happening here. Other stuff is work, having like a structure in terms of working out 3 times every single week. Like I have to do that. For about 8 years, I told myself that I would not listen to anything other than podcasts or audiobooks in my car. That's all I would listen to. There was no music. So when I was a behavior therapist and I would drive from one place to school, to work, to a home, that's all I listened to. So in my environment, I was being inundated with positive, empowering information. I stopped watching news. And people were like, did you hear what happened? And I'm hearing about it right now. Reduced my social media usage. Again, this is more when I was starting out. It's kind of switched right now, but I reduced my social media usage. So during the day, I was not on social media. Around 6 p.m., I could go to town. There's a time when I was started waking up like super early, right? Just to make sure that again, the structure of everything that I wanted to do was in line with the vision that I wanted to build. And so, yeah, right. When you're starting out, when your idea is new, it is fragile. It's like a little candlelight that, again, anything can blow it, right? Your self-doubt, your insecurities can shut it down. The self-doubt or insecurities of someone can shut it down. Seeing that someone else is doing something similar can shut it down. So it's like, yes, you need to do the research so that you know, okay, am I building something unique or where is the actual need? But you also want to make sure that your lifestyle, your environment is set for that success. Because if it is not, yes, there are different strategies that you can apply, but because they're not within a structure or a framework that is going to maintain them long term, maybe for the first week, for the first few months, you're like, go, go, go. But then after a while, then you won't be excited. Just one more thing about the structure. My weekends, so two things. So on weekends, on Saturdays, it was important that I work. And then I changed that to every single day. I have to do something to move my business forward, even if it's just an email. And yes, on Christmas Day, on Stats holidays, I had to do one thing to move my business forward. And that analogy was from John Maxwell's work, where he says that if you had to cut down a tree and you came every day and you just strike it once with an axe and left, and then you did that every single day, it might be a few months, a few years, but eventually that tree is coming down. So every single day I did something to move my business forward. And that is also something that allowed it to have that consistency and to keep that momentum going.
I think that's so good because I think I think there's sort of two sides when people talk about building business, right? There's the, oh, don't let your business overtake your life and, you can do anything you want. And yes, you can. But if you want to get to that place where you truly have basically the financial ability to do everything you want, it is going to require effort and, like you say, structure, dedication, focus, a lot more hours than you probably think you're going to need. Sorry, Tim Ferriss, but when you're starting, there is no 4-hour work week. You could
Yeah.
probably get there, but when you're new and in the beginning and working to get traction, it's a myth. And I think this is also, one of the reasons I really wanted to do this podcast is because advice is relevant depending on the stage that you're at. And so often brand new business owners are trying to take the advice of someone who's already made it. And
Mhm.
they're sharing what works for them now. And it's not relevant to the person that's still trying to get it off the ground or get traction. And so it's so important to be really discerning with what you're hearing. And I think it's not like hustle culture or, any of those things that you're talking about when you're talking about, no, we have to build, if this really matters to you, and if you're trying to build something that's going to basically give you financial freedom,
Mhm.
the structure's required. And especially if you're new at it and you've never done it before. And it may seem counterintuitive, but it's that structure that actually gives you the freedom.
Absolutely. And and that like touches on like one of the things again that I've also learned. Discipline equals freedom. The more disciplined you are, the more freedom you're going to have. And I agree because people are looking for a balanced life. And I think depending on the stage, that's something that you can strive for. But if you notice anyone who's ever accomplished anything of value, at some point, they had to be unbalanced.
Yes.
If you are getting let's say if you were in school and you're getting your degree, where were you spending most of your time? Studying. In university, where are you spending most of your time? Studying. If you're a new like parent, there's no balance with that, right? You're spending your time with your kids so that again, you're raising them. So it's a fallacy that there's this idea of balanced life. And yeah, there's probably reasons why people like perpetuate it. And so it's almost like when people hear that, it sounds good, and then they don't do in the work. When you're starting out, it is very important that you're focused, but that also means that in a way, you're a little bit obsessive about it. And people fear that of being obsessive. Like, oh, I don't want to be obsessive. Well, if you don't want to be obsessive, then you really don't want to be more than average. Because the average person is not obsessive. The average person is just coasting. That's the average person who's got the balanced life. But if you want to actually build your business, have that impact that you want, you have to be obsessive. You have to be out of balance for a while. You have to be disciplined. You have to be focused. And where the hustle culture gets it wrong is that hustle doesn't cause success, but it is the byproduct of a clear vision. So if you know your why, if you know your purpose, you are going to be inspired to want to work on it every day. Right? Last night, I didn't work from 8 to like 11:30 p.m. in bed because I'm hustling. Literally, my brain was like, "Oh, I've got this new idea about this like this project that I'm working on. Let's see what's going on." And then I'm just like on my computer, just working, 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 working. Again, the intention is not, "Oh, I have to work," but there's like I'm inspired to work. And
Yeah.
so,
It's a
if you
pull.
can precisely, and so if you can differentiate between those two, where again, if you just work, 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 and you're dreading it, I can assure you that is not going to produce the results that you want. But if you know your why, you've got your purpose, and you're inspired to work, the effectiveness of your work that you're going to be doing is going to be amazing. When people, like again, and I'll just touch on this, people will be like, how come you're starting different, like how come you have multiple companies? And why are you starting other projects? Isn't that too much? Right? How do you have time to do other things? I have time because I'm inspired. Like I know the why. And so if I do, let's say even 2 hours on my body language, my 2 hours of working on my body language is the equivalent of maybe someone's 2 days of doing the same thing. Not because I'm smarter, not because of anything. It's just because I'm so inspired. I'm passionate about it. Mind, body, and I'll use the word spirit and emotions are all aligned that like the ideas are going. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to text this person. And there's like an energy to it. So inspired action is very important. But again, it comes down to knowing your vision, your purpose, your why. And then knowing that and being okay with being out of balance, being obsessed and realizing that discipline is a good thing. I think, yeah, people like are afraid that, oh, I'm restricting myself by being disciplined. But you're actually going to allow yourself to get more freedom. And I'll touch on one more thing. Yes, one more thing. Um, when I was starting my companies, like I had a few friends around me, especially when I was not going out on weekends anymore, that would say, Simba, life is too short. And this is when like the phrase YOLO was like really popular. YOLO, you only live once. Let's go and have a good time. And I was like, you know what? Like I really want this to work. And so I didn't have a good time by going out, and I just worked and worked and worked. Now, when we look at the difference between our lives, it is different. Like it's a stark difference. Because at that time, I was willing to do the things they didn't want to do. Now I'm at a place that I'm able to do things that they can't do. And so sometimes you have to say no to the good so that you can get access to the great. And try not for it to be a black and white thinking, because sometimes people will be like, wow, if I'm super disciplined, that means I'm going to do things that are like I won't get any joy out of it. No, you can still you can still have some fun, right? You can still hang out, right? You can still do all these things. But the idea is that 80% of your time or 80% of your thought processes is now dedicated to that specific purpose, specific passion. And you only leave time for those recreational activities for the people that matter and for the recreational activities that will not impact your purpose.
Yeah. Well, and I think you actually end up really more fulfilled. And like you say, you do these things now for what you get to enjoy later. Like, so you can do things now that those people that maybe wanted to, you only live once moments can't do. And in the relative like timeline of life, that space where you were just head down making it happen to get to where you are now really isn't that long. 3, 5 years, like it's like in the whole grand scheme of your life, it's not that big. And the important thing to remember is you actually like what you're doing. It's not like
Mhm.
going to a job that you hate. It's something that inspires you. And so the work actually feels fun, even when it's challenging. Even the challenge part of it is fun, and trying to solve the problems because you're working towards this bigger vision or this bigger purpose. And because I know you, it's like, now what, you travel at least one week of every month, and I know you do salsa dancing. Like, it's not like you are just a, head down, Simba has no fun. Like, no, that's not it at all. But you also recognize what's important for the stage of your life that you're at, so that you're now at this place where you can do these things. And I'm certain that you work when you are not in the country. Have
Maybe a
laptop
little bit.
travel, yeah. But it's because that it is enjoyable, and because you have this mission that you're on, that you probably, well, you won't see it in your lifetime. And so every moment does count to work on the mission, where it's like, okay, I just need to keep doing my best to keep moving this forward, because there's a lot of work to do, but it's inspiring work, and it matters, and it's one of the reasons why, I mean, A, I love business, and B, because I think business can be such a force for good,
Hmm,
and it requires the dedication and the effort and the discipline. All of those pieces is what ends up making it actually work. And so,
absolutely.
don't listen to your friends who don't want to build anything.
Yes.
Wrong
Don't.
advice. That doesn't work.
No, I was going to say and like when you're talking about it being a relatively short time, when people hear 5 years, like as an example, they're like, oh, 5 years is a long time. 5 years is going to pass either way.
Yep,
Either you're going to have a successful business, live the life that you want, have the body, relationships, finances that you want, or you're not. But the 5 year period is for sure going to pass. The question is, how is it going to look like in those 5 years? So it's not necessarily a matter of thinking, oh, it's going to be a long time, because that time is going to pass regardless.
exactly. Exactly. I think this is so good. There's so many good things in here for early stage people who are just getting started and things that they're not necessarily going to learn in their entrepreneur classes or in your business school. But these are the things that are going to move you forward. Like you don't have to be David Goggins crazy, but you do have to be a little disciplined and you do have to get back up every single time you fall. Every time you
Mhm.
feel scared, you've got to just face it again and do it one more time, do it one more time. If you really want to build something, um, A, that matters, and B, that makes the money that you want it to make, because businesses do make money, or maybe they're just a hobby in that space.
Yeah,
Um,
and you're absolutely right. Because also, like with the failure thing is, and I don't know why I'm like stuck on vision, purpose, and why. Maybe it's because I'm talking to you, but the importance of it, like I cannot overstate. Because how you accomplish that when you start a business, there are so many different ways. Because for me, whether it's Lenica, the tech company, whether we did the clinical, we created like a clinical integration platform, whether it's the body language or the podcast, the why for all of them is exactly the same. But
yeah,
the expression of that why or that purpose is different. And so, again, that will help you like frame if you're like starting a business. Okay, what's my why? And then if your business has to change, you're able to make that shift. Right? Maybe you have to do a different product, provide a different service. Maybe you have to pivot in some way. Right? And it's not necessarily the process, the business itself, that is it is important, but the why is important because there are so many ways in which you can accomplish it. And figuring that out is part of the fun of it.
absolutely. Well, and even when you say like people like, oh, you're starting all these different things and different projects. Yes, and they all exist to serve that bigger purpose.
Yes.
So they all fit, they're all connected. And I know all of the
Mhm.
different things you're doing, they all fit together, right? Like the podcast supports the Body Language Training Institute. This new thing
Mhm.
part with the membership. It's just another layer, another way to go deeper.
Yeah.
Like everything fits, and I think you've spent the time too where you build one thing, you get it going, it's getting some traction, you're getting the feedback. It's not like you build six things at once, right? There's a progression to it. So it's not like you have, oh, well, Simba has like five different things that he does all at once. It's like maybe, but he didn't you start with one.
Mhm.
Get that thing situated, going, traction, making some dollars, and then the next thing, then the next thing. And I think the new ideas, they come from once that one thing is working because you get feedback from real people, from real customers. You learn
Mhm.
more about the problems they want to solve because, every problem gets solved and there's another problem. And so, you can just keep solving problems for your people, but it goes right back to that focus and that discipline of the one thing at a time before we move forward. So important.
Yeah. And I think like I love the saying that if you have more than two priorities, you have none.
Exactly.
So it's like it's so important when you're starting out again to have one, maybe two, if you've got the capacity for it. Um, but it's so important that you figure out, okay, what is it that I'm going to do? Again, why am I doing it? Because
Yeah.
sometimes I hear people, they'll be like, well, I'm going to try this for a little bit. If it doesn't work, I'm going to do this. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to do this. Right? So they're trying to kind of do like, they'll just try something.
Yeah. There's no commitment there.
Precisely. There's no commitment. There's almost the subconscious expectation is not going to work out.
Yeah.
And so again, and they're like, right, it's important to figure out again, what is that one thing that you're going to focus on, right? The process that you engage in terms of starting that, pick the low hanging fruit. Maybe you want to end up having this big, gigantic company that does that. But what is that first step? What is that first product? What is that first minimum viable product or course or or book, whatever, or blog article that you can start off with just to get that momentum in. You do that, right? Get your customers to look at it and then go to the next one. Going slow allows you to move faster. I made that mistake of like, oh, I want to do all of this stuff and I want to make it super cool. Going slow allows you to move faster. The other thing that I learned is if you are happy with your first product, you've launched too late.
So true.
You've launched too late. Right? You should be a little bit uneasy saying, oh, I know like that episode, that book, that product, the website is not quite there. Right? So
That's
you have to be a little bit embarrassed about your product because you need that feedback. Right? If you're like,
yeah,
nope, it has to be perfect, just it'll be perfect in your eyes, and your customers will be like, I don't need that.
exactly. And then you feel terrible. You're like, "What? No." But it's so true. It's like the mad scramble. You launch, you're like, "Oh my God, I forgot to do this. Oh crap. Oh my God, the camera doesn't work. Oh this, oh that." It's just this work in progress. I love it. It's so good. So good.
Oh,
All right, are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
I am.
All right. So, what's the name of your business?
Body Language Training Institute, the Resilient Mind podcast, the Simba Mindset.
And what does your company do or companies?
We provide educational services in the form of courses, workshops, podcasts, books to individuals to help them learn about themselves, improve their communication skills, and just feel and become aware of the power that they hold within themselves.
And what's one problem your business solves?
I People being stuck. I don't know if that's a problem.
Of course it is.
People
And
being stuck.
what's one decision you made early on that changed everything?
That I can create my own personal economy versus relying on what is happening in the environment. So basically, I'm in control of my life, and I do not at any point think it's the government, people, organizations, regardless of even like, again, I'm African. So sometimes people take, well, it's because of like, again, my skin color, my ethnicity, my gender, and all that other stuff. I do not believe that. Like, I'm fully in control of my life and everything's going to be successful because of that.
Love it. How long did it take you to get real traction?
So many years. I think for the current businesses, like real traction, probably 4 years. 4 years when I started getting real traction and then building on the traction that I was getting.
I love
So
it.
4 years of providing, yeah.
And what's one mistake you'd avoid if you were starting all over today from the very beginning?
Talk to your customer.
What's a number you're proud of? So that could be like revenue, customers, downloads. I don't know, just a number. What's a number that you're proud of?
I'm proud of. I think yeah, number of downloads and listens. Yeah, I'm proud of many numbers. Lots of
And
numbers I'm happy with.
what's the best thing that's happened to you, to your business?
Really, just hearing how impactful what it is we're doing is, because some of the businesses we don't interact with customers as much, but seeing the positive comments, this actually helped. Or when people come to the workshops and let me know that this was actually like impactful, yeah, I think that's super amazing.
And if you had to start over with only $1,000, what would you do first?
I'll run a workshop for free and get people to join, even if one person or two people join, I'll do that consistently and get feedback from everyone who's joining and start building on that.
Love it. What's one underrated habit that helped you grow?
This is good. Consistency,
And
like discipline.
how is your company a force for good?
Um, we provide a different perspective because everything in life, if seen from a different perspective, can drastically change the heaviness, the stuckness that people feel. So sometimes it's not about more information than we think it is or different experiences. It just requires a shift in perspective and our ability to be able to do that for most people um, really changes a lot of their behaviors or a lot of areas that they're getting stuck in.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being my very first guest on Walk with Founders.
Thank you for having me. I loved it.